the profundity of being alive. It's not a small thing. You don't really feel that into that power of being alive. Whether it's called meditation or awareness practice, for people who are struggling with substance use, having this kind of powerful tool and support is really profound.
Substance use disorder touches all our lives, and often we feel hopeless or frustrated in our pursuit to understand how and why it happens.
Welcome to APC Recovery Cafe, where we discuss the topics and trends around substance use, provide education and resources, offer recovery support, and also discuss prevention tactics, all through the stories of the people who have been there.
We invite you to grab your favorite coffee or tea and join us for a variety of guests that will bring understanding, information, connection, and hope.
Together, we can break the stigma and pave a brighter future for each other.
Hi folks, welcome into this episode of the APC Recovery Cafe. I'm Art Wimberly. I'm one of your co-hosts. I'm a person grateful to be in long-term recovery and a volunteer at the Addiction Prevention Coalition. I'm here today with Edward Taylor of APC. Edward, good morning.
Morning. Yep, Edward Taylor, Director of Prevention Initiatives at the Addiction Prevention Coalition. Person grateful to be in long-term recovery.
There you go.
There we go.
Yeah.
Our guest today is Anne Markham Bailey. She's a writer and awareness educator. Welcome aboard this morning.
Thank you. It's really nice to be here.
So, Recovery Cafe, true to our form, we always ask our guests what beverage they would want. Anne, would you like to mention what your beverage is?
Let's see.
In great detail, of course.
My beverage appears to be a Good and Gather, that's the Target brand, purified drinking water. I chose water as my beverage because I know the importance of hydration. And fun body fact is that our bodies are like 90% water. So staying hydrated is something that's very important for us.
I think we should start just by mentioning how our paths crossed. You had sent I guess we have just like a general inquiry box or email on we being the APC, our website, and you sent us an email saying that maybe there was some work that you could do for us or for the people that we serve. And so, speaking of your work, kind of tell us a little bit about that, what it is you do.
Well, I guess in the broadest sense, I'm really interested in how to heal the planet. And that includes human beings. And as a human being, I'm very interested in and have spent decades practicing how to become, how to really fully experience being alive. And through a lot of different kinds of practice forms, a lot of going inward, even though my mother told me that I shouldn't spend too much time going inward. That really has been my path to explore form. And people laugh at me and they're like, oh my gosh, that sounds so grandiose. But that's just how I think of it.
Yeah.
So I've always been a writer. I knew I was a writer as a child. And early on, I found that the poets and the writers and they were my tribe. And they really, I think, in a way, helped save me. Many of them struggled with substances and with mental health issues, emotional issues, but they didn't turn away from that. And it was that kind of tenacity to continue to examine the detail of experience that really caught my attention early on. So I knew I was a writer, but what do you do with that? So I just sort of lived my life, went to college, wanted to be an English major, and was told that's a useless thing to do. So I studied Chinese. I studied literature, East Asian literature, and French literature, and Spanish literature, and any literature I could get my hands on. And then on the side, pursued it while going into business to create a livelihood. And after decades in the print business, I decided to do something different. And parallel to life as a creative, I was also exploring form as a meditator in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, and as a yogi, and all kinds of contemplative exploration.
So part of your story is being born and growing up in Birmingham, right? But eventually being drawn away to college in New York at Columbia, right?
Yeah.
And I think part of your story is that it was kind of there that you were maybe even more introduced to the idea of the body and meditation and that type of thing. And I found in my own life, again, like you, born in Birmingham, I actually never left. But it wasn't until I was much older and went into recovery, and then went into recovery in other states and talked to people, that I started hearing about the use of the body, the right use of the body in their recovery. And I'd never heard of that in the South. So sounds like it was in a way of similar for you, that going to another part of the country is where you began to connect to some of this. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I took a seminar that was in religious studies with a famous guy at the time, Theodore DeBerry, and was really fascinated to study the Indian Upanishads and study the Sufis and study these religions from all over the world. And what really struck me was studying about the whirling dervishes that come out of the Sufi mystic tradition. And it was the first, I think, understanding of the body as practice, of the body as worship, the sacred nature of being connected, and that ecstatic expression that now, all these decades later, I really have come to understand through lived experience and through study, that one of the tools that is extremely helpful for recovery is to be able to move into the senses and experience the connectivity of the body, so that we're moving out of the mind into the body and connecting, because the possibility for a kind of ecstatic state is just, it's real, it's there, it's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
And we have that as a tool. We can move into our own experience of being on this planet, which is really mind-blowing.
Yeah, and I think typically, at least, from what I was exposed to most of my life in the Bible Belt, it was almost this idea that the body was bad and it was an enemy. And, what you're describing is what I think the world is kind of coming back to, in a sense, is no, it's actually the way we actually connect to the present. Mm-hmm. And as you said, to begin to be more present in life. The body's the only part about us that is always present. Anyway, the mind can be in the future or the past. The emotions can take us everywhere. And this whole connection to how it helps people in recovery is fascinating to me. And I think we're just now tapping into that. But it sounds like you've kind of had it for decades that you've been studying it.
Well, I became disenchanted with formal meditation practice because it was so instructive. And so many people are never going to go sit on a cushion like that. And as a person who's always enjoyed studying languages and traveling around the world, I wanted to learn to translate. I wanted to learn to translate the really incredibly powerful pieces of meditation practice as it came to the West in a way that anybody, you don't have to be, you can have whatever religion you want. Whatever that is for you, great. You still can have this tool, this really simple practice that will just empower you as a being. I mean, it's just such a gift that I feel that I was given to learn this practice, the practice of moving out of being trapped in the mind and moving into the direct experience of being in the body and of being aware of the senses.
Yeah. Because so much about recovery, not all, but a lot about addiction has to do with anxiety. And so what you're talking about is a way to kind of begin to lessen the effect of anxiety, getting out of the mind and then recentering. But you've had some practical experience in Birmingham area, right? Our friend Stephen Pam Moore, the More Addiction Institute, you were able to actually work with some groups in their process. Is that right?
It is. I knew I wanted to work in this area and I wanted to get credentials. So I did a yoga teacher training certification program. And then Steve and Pam go to St. Stephen's Episcopal Church, which is where I'm a member along with my husband, and met them there. And they engaged me to teach yoga. And I quickly realized that telling people what to do is not what's going to help heal the world. It's helping people find their own empowerment. And so how do you do that? So I just really I stopped saying, oh, do this or do that, and would just make suggestions or offer invitations, because underneath all of this, all the instruction are the pieces that at one time back whenever some of these practices started, somebody just explored. They just explored being alive, being in their body, what it feels like for the sun to be in relationship with you.
Probably at a time in history where human beings were much closer to the earth and the elements.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're so far removed from that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people are.
Yeah.
How do you think meditative practices could? Because I'm imagining somebody who's listening who hasn't tried it before. How do you think it could benefit somebody in recovery, or maybe they're struggling with addiction and they want to try something new?
That's a really great question. A couple of things. One is the profundity of being alive. It's not a small thing. And yet, we often don't really feel it. We don't really feel that into that power of being alive. And whether it's called meditation or awareness practice, it's a making time, putting something on your calendar, committing to feeling into, whether it's going inward or feeling your skin, or I'm a big proponent of assisting people in learning to feel their breath, because we breathe, I think it's like 50,000 times a day, but we're not even aware of this profound relationship without which we do not live.
Yeah.
And so for people who are struggling with substance use, having this kind of powerful tool and support is really profound.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is that, for example, I was facilitating what were called yoga classes with St. Anne's, which was a addiction recovery residential facility. And the women there were so exhausted from the trauma of their lives that telling them to do something like, oh, put out your yoga mat and we're going to do downward dog or something. It seemed so absurd to me that as a facilitator, what I would do is just hold the space and they would actually sleep. And they constantly communicated that they felt so safe and protected. And I would lead them into feeling their breath and moving into feeling their bodies, and it was the feedback that I got was that it was really, really supportive to them. And we need support because when we have an impairment, a disease like addiction, it's just there's so much trauma just from the guilt that I should be able to be different from this. But I'm not, and I'm going back again and again and again. And so what can support? Well, it turns out, actually, there's, tools built into the life process called being on the planet and being able to open into self-existing awareness of being alive.
Yeah.
So that you can feel the anxiety, so that you can feel the grief, so that you can feel the longing, the being able to stay with it and feel the pain of wanting something so deeply. A woman at St. Anne's never could sleep because she had restless leg syndrome. So she was dealing with the fact that she couldn't take the drugs that they give for that because she was in a recovery process. So I encouraged her just to explore, perhaps, not want to tell her what to do, but what did it really feel like to have restless leg syndrome instead of trying to get away from it? And I mention this simply because my experience is, what is it like to be alive when we stop trying to get away from it?
The idea in recovery would be whatever we resist will persist. We're giving it energy by fighting it. Similar to what you're saying.
Yeah. What does it feel like just to be who we are? Alive. There's enormous power in that.
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing I would mention is, at least to our listeners, is, there it seems to be, maybe it's because we're in the South, the common misconception that meditation and then two things come to mind. One is sitting there, not moving, eyes closed, and the other one is any sort of Eastern religious thing that comes to mind. And the beauty of it is that you have touched on, and you obviously know this, it can be so many different things as long as, or not even as long as, but the goal is usually to bring you into being, So I remember when I was in treatment many years ago, and I just decided, I came home from treatment that day and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try, no one's here. I'm just going to try kind of awareness or mindful eating, just this meal, just this one. And I was like, that was the best meal I'd ever had. I was like, this is amazing, the texture and all that. So point being, it's a very inclusive practice, meditation is, and it's, and what I mean by that is not necessarily like demographic type of stuff, but it means whatever makes sense to you.
Often in early stage recovery, you got some sobriety. There's still a lot going on with the emotions and the thinking. We talked about that. So it's hard to just be. And a lot of times I've heard Steve Moore talk about this, Steve and Pam, a lot. Oftentimes in those early stages, if we're going to do meditation practices or being in that type of awareness, then we often actually need some help to do it in community, because to do it alone is a little scary. We're not, sometimes in that early state, we're just not to a place where we can handle it on our own. So I'm just wondering if obviously you did some work with individuals, but you've done some with groups as well. So not that we don't always need community, but I think maybe this is one of those areas where when we're beginning to learn these practices, that often having a group of people more than just ourselves may be important. Have you found that to be true?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because you when you first start out with this, and even later, there are a lot of questions because you start noticing a lot of things.
Yes, which is the scary part in early recovery. I was trying to get away from those things, and now you're asking me to sit with them, and we usually don't have that capacity by ourselves yet.
And it's so easy just to say, well, I'm way too uncomfortable. I'm going to get up and leave.
Yes.
So easy.
Or it even can drive us back into that anxiety state or emotional state where we're more likely to relapse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think that the part of meditation that really is inclusive of the body is really important. But being in the group, yes. And that's why as I have moved forward with building programs, writing the book, I've felt like building community is the real power source.
Yeah.
Inviting individuals in, and not having answers, but offering a place for community. So definitely felt that with Pam and Steve Moore. And now, in January of last year, I launched the first course after shifting my out of the printing business that I'd been in for a long time. And it was wonderful to see the people who came into the course, which was a really diverse group, and many of whom had never meditated before. Some had had a meditation app and had done that by themselves, but never felt successful at it. But were still interested in healing and in learning to be in their bodies. One woman who's a professor at Alabama said to me, "Why did I never learn any of this? Why have I never learned this?" But the group itself and the group experience was really powerful. So I'm always looking for interesting ways of bringing people together and being with people so that this kind of work and practice is done in a group.
Mm-hmm.
So to that end, you've actually written a book, or I think more of a handbook, called The Practice of Being, The Power of Creative Awareness. And people can notice the size of it.
A slim volume.
Which I assume makes it a little bit more practical.
Nerd.
Is that right? This is almost like a little handbook, a practical guide to what you're talking about.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. The process of writing that book was so incredible. I did a series of solitary retreats and really processed through my own experience as to what is the most fundamental thing that we can do to practice being alive. Because, hello, everybody, this is our first run through at being human. So we don't know what we're doing and we need guides.
Yeah.
And many of us live in a culture that does not guide us well. We're guided in ways that are very destructive for us as beings and turns out destructive for the planet we live on. So writing the book was wonderful, but then it is definitely a concise practice guide. So I really want to offer people a way to practice awareness. And I use the word awareness instead of meditation, Edward, just because of the vision that people have and the stereotype of sitting on a cushion and not being able to move.
Yeah.
Well, even the 11th step points to that, because it says we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact, right, with God and ourselves and others. So that's pointing to awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you introduced Anne to me, you brought up the idea of forest bathing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, I don't think I've Ever heard of that?
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to draw that out.
Yeah, well, I had two questions actually, and I'll start with the one that I was thinking of. But obviously, a big part of what you do is creative in nature, or creatively based. And I was wondering, and this is for either folks who are listening who are in recovery, because seems to be some sort of benefit for creative practices for people in recovery. But the other thing too is for anyone, what is an easy way that they can get in touch with their creative side? Because I'm thinking of, me in particular, I mean, I've been a musician my whole life, but if someone is like, okay, today we're going to draw, I'm like, I can't draw, so I'm not going to do it. So I'm thinking of anyone who thinks, oh, I'm not creative. Anyone who's listening, I'm not creative. How can they get through that and practice being creative? Because I think it helps everyone, no matter what, in a lot of ways.
Well, that's a very interesting question. And you see the subtitle of the book is The Power of Creative Awareness. Well, it turns out that all of existence is one big creative process.
Yeah.
With every breath, with every cell division, with every passing moment of time, it's the rising and falling of life that is just creative. So this idea that people aren't creative is just completely misguided. Everyone is creative. Mm-hmm. There's nothing else. That we're on an arc of time as beings. It's all creativity. In terms of addressing your question, I think is more, how do people find a form?
Yeah.
So the first thing I always introduce is the essential nature of existence, which is inherently creative. So you don't need to worry that you're not creative. That's all life is.
Yeah, it's in your in your genes, no matter what. Right?
It's just a fact.
Yeah.
And so it's a matter of coming to some kind of curiosity about what form you might want to explore. So for someone, my husband's really creative in business and the relationship aspect. He's just always able to see things in a really fresh and creative way. That's his creativity. And you like to play guitar. Maybe you like to sing or other things. Some people like to draw or do things that that simply are an exploration of form. So that's another piece of this awareness, mm-hmm. that when we learn to open into the awareness that it's not something we make up, it's existent. The planet is aware, and we are also aware. So our senses are little guiding. There are sensors, if you will, highly tuned, very refined. When we move into our senses, then a creative process, they're sort of linked. Well, not sort of linked, they're very linked. And so you can, as a being, just explore what form calls to you, because you'll have insight about yourself. You'll pick something up. Maybe it's something that is a guide that's easy for you to do. Maybe it's a paint by number kit, or building a model, or getting a book about how to write a poem. I really love, as a writer, I'm incredibly enthusiastic about people being creative. And so I like to do workshops. I just offer 2.5 hour workshops, creative writing workshops. I did one recently at the Irondale Public Library, and just invite the public in. The library hosted me, and just bring people in and let's do some creative writing. Why? Because it's fun.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's interesting. It's interesting to write about things. So I brought in objects, and we explored the objects, and people just wrote amazing things, which is what always ends up happening.
Yeah.
Do you think that's inherently part of the healing process as well for folks? Creativity?
Yeah, I do. I really do, because it's finding a confidence in being able to express, finding a means of communication in a way that takes yourself seriously. So many people don't take themselves seriously. They're full of shame and fear. And I mean, I'm one of those people, you know, I deal with all kinds of things. We all do. So acting like there's somebody who doesn't is kind of a crazy.
Which is always a big part of the understory in addiction, right? We all deal with it, but often those of us have struggled with some type of debilitating addiction. It's become a powerful story underneath that we've got to explore.
Yeah.
So as we close, and I'd love for you to tell the listeners some of the different things that you offer. You've mentioned several. We've got the book, courses, we mentioned forest bathing. How would they get in touch with you, and what should they be looking for? Because you've got something coming up in January, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I am rooted in Birmingham, but I travel and love collaborating with people as part of my process. My website is Anne with an E, AnneMarkhamBailey.com, and hopefully that can be up on the screen or spelled out. Should I spell it out?
No, we can put it up for you.
Should I spell it out?
Yeah. Do I really need to say that again? It's me. It's Anne.
But I offer online courses, in-person workshops, and seminars. I'm a certified forest bathing guide, and that's another type of awareness practice that's also called ecotherapy or nature therapy. But I do that all over, and I'm really interested in working with groups, nonprofits, corporations, because there's tremendous wellness, evidence-based wellness power in being in nature. And being guided in awareness in nature. My books are on my website. Ways to contact me are on my website. I'm on social, Instagram and Facebook. Instagram is AMB_rights. And Facebook is my name, AnneMarkhamBailey.com. I'm on Twitter. I'm doing freelance writing as well. So these are topics that I write about quite a bit. So you can easily find me online, and I love to engage. So
yeah. One thing I did forget to mention this that I'm getting really excited about is ways that the APC is going to be continuing to collaborate, I guess you could say with you. We are in the process of starting an adolescent support group, specifically for kids who are in recovery or adolescents who are in recovery who think they might want to be in recovery, might have a problem with substances, or just kids who are in need of positive social support. I'm heading that up, and I'm really excited to eventually hopefully bring you in to teach some sort of awareness course. Perhaps we go out for a forest bathing session, something like that. So we're definitely going to be implementing some of these practices and to help, because that's why you reached out to us, was to use this to help. That's what we do, and there's a big opportunity here. So
well, that's cool. I'm excited to hear that.
Yeah.
It's such an incredible organization.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the work that y'all are doing. It's really powerful.
Well, Anne, thanks for getting up and joining us today.
Yeah.
And we hope to see how the collaboration begins to work out as we go along.
Yeah, meant to say to listeners, if you're interested, there's an online course. It's a 6-week online journey of awareness practice that's called The Roots of Our Well-Being. And it starts, I think, January 18th. It's on Sunday, but there's links to it on my website, AnneMarkhamBailey.com. So please join me.
Thanks again. That's exciting. Guys, join us next time when we come back for APC Recovery Cafe.
One of the things that APC is known for is being a connector because we're stronger together.
Not only are we there for those who are suffering through substance use disorder, but we're there for family members, and we really take our job seriously.
We all have personal reason why we're in this field. We're changing people's lives one community at a time.